Imagine you just spent $20 million on an absolute masterpiece of a painting. You bring it home, you carefully unpack it, and then you nail it to a damp, rotting wall in a dark, windowless basement.
Yeah, which sounds completely insane.
Right. Welcome to the deep dive. I know that scenario sounds completely absurd, but in the world of premium real estate, people make this exact mistake like every single day.
They really do. All the time.
They pour all of their analytical energy into the four walls they're buying. They obsess over the floor plan. They check the marble finishes. They, measure the balcony dimensions to the exact millimeter.
Right, but they pay absolutely zero attention to the wall they're hanging it on.
Exactly. The neighborhood, the surrounding infrastructure, and the macro environment that actually gives that asset its value.
It's honestly the ultimate blind spot in property acquisition, because think about it. A painting in a dark basement is going to be experienced and valued very differently than that exact same painting in a climate-controlled sunlit gallery.
Oh, 100%.
The context completely defines the utility and the long-term worth. So in real estate, the master plan of the surrounding city, the hidden infrastructure, the transit arteries, all of that is your gallery.
Yeah.
And if you get the gallery wrong, well, the perfection of the painting simply doesn't matter.
That makes total sense. And that brings us directly to our mission today for you, the listener. We are dissecting a brand new residential launch in Dubai called Roudah.
Right.
And it sits within an enclave known as Expo Valley Views. But here's the catch. If we just jump straight into looking at the apartment layouts for Roudah, we fall into that exact trap we just talked about.
You'd just be staring at the painting without examining the wall.
Exactly. Because Roudah is situated inside this sprawling, highly complex ecosystem of Expo City Dubai. And you simply cannot grasp what this specific development is or, why it holds such strategic importance right now without first unpacking that macro vision.
Yeah, you have to understand the city it's embedded within.
Right. So we're taking a deeply analytical, highly systematic approach today based on the developer brochures and the master plan materials. No hype, no aggressive sales pitches, just a thorough breakdown of the architecture, the urban planning, and the lifestyle mechanics.
Which is really the only rigorous way to evaluate an asset of this scale. I mean, we have to start with the macro context, the geographic and economic tectonic plates shifting beneath this project.
And then we'll zoom in.
Right. Then we zoom into the micro details of the architecture and the human experience. And finally, we synthesize what this actually means for someone looking to live or invest there over, say, the next decade.
So let's start with that macro context, because Expo City Dubai is not your standard. Start from a blank patch of sand master plan community.
No, not at all.
It has a very distinct, very global genesis. It's built on the legacy of Expo 2020.
Yeah, and for anyone who might not have followed the logistics of that event, Expo 2020 was a monumental global exhibition hosted by Dubai. It welcomed 192 nations and over 24 million visitors.
24 million, that's just staggering.
It was huge. It was this massive showcase of global innovation, sustainability, and architectural prowess. But historically, host cities of mega events, whether it's an expo or the Olympics, they often suffer from what urban planners call the white elephant syndrome.
Oh, right. Like when they build these massive stadiums and then they just sit there empty.
Exactly. They build these colossal multi-billion-dollar infrastructures for a 6-month party, essentially. And then they struggle to figure out what to do with the hollowed-out pavilions once the crowds leave.
Yeah.
I mean, Athens and Rio de Janeiro are classic, unfortunate examples of this.
But the strategy here with Expo City was fundamentally inverted, right?
Completely inverted. Expo City Dubai was never designed to be a temporary fairground. The urban planning mandate from day one, literally years before the first visitor even arrived, was to design the permanent future-facing city first.
Wow.
Yeah, and then they just overlaid the 6-month Expo event on top of it. That is why an astonishing 80% of the infrastructure from the World Expo has been retained.
Wait, 80%? Retaining 80% of an infrastructure built to handle 24 million people. I mean, that's a wild metric. Put that into perspective for the listener. What does inheriting that kind of foundational build-out actually mean for a residential project launching there today?
Well, it means the heavy lifting is already done. Usually when you buy into a new master planned community, you're buying a rendering.
Right. A glossy brochure and a promise.
Exactly. You're hoping the developer actually builds the promise roads, installs the utility grids, and attracts the commercial anchors over the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, which doesn't always happen.
Right. But here, you are stepping into a city that already possesses a level of deeply integrated, pressure-tested infrastructure that most new developments take decades to mature into.
Because it already had to handle millions of people.
Yes. The roads, the subterranean utility tunnels, the deep water drainage, the public transit links, they are already in the ground and fully operational. And furthermore, Expo City is not an isolated bubble. It's a critical node in the Dubai 2040 Urban Master Plan, which is the Emirates' strategic blueprint for sustainable, transit-oriented growth.
And that transit orientation is just impossible to ignore when you look at the geographic mapping and the sources. The connectivity here is aggressive. It's not just near a road. It is physically enmeshed in the Emirates' primary transport arteries.
The logistics are incredibly robust. First, you have the Route 2020 metro station directly serving the city.
Which is huge.
It is. In urban planning, this is called transit-oriented development, or TOD. Living adjacent to a high-capacity rail line fundamentally alters mobility. It removes the absolute reliance on private vehicles, reduces commute friction, and integrates the community directly into the broader economic centers of Dubai.
Yeah, but for vehicular movement, the location is also flanked by 4 major highways.
Right.
And I want to break down those specific highways because for anyone who understands the topography of the UAE, this is the equivalent of holding 4 aces.
It really is.
You have immediate access to Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Road, which is the E311. You have Sheikh Zayed Road, the E11, Emirates Road, the E611, and Al Khail Road, the E44.
Yeah, and to contextualize that for the listener, the E11 is the primary coastal spine of the entire country. The E311 is the major commuter belt that runs parallel to it, handling massive daily traffic volumes.
Right.
The E611 is the heavy logistics and bypass artery pushing further inland, and the E44 cuts laterally across the city. So having immediate on-ramps to all 4 of these arteries means you have complete topological dominance.
You could just go anywhere.
Exactly. You can seamlessly route yourself to any point in the emirate or to neighboring emirates like Abu Dhabi or Sharjah, bypassing localized traffic choke points.
That is a massive logistical advantage. But, I'd argue the most critical piece of the connectivity puzzle isn't a road at all. It's the immediate proximity to Al Maktoum International Airport.
Ah, yes.
The community sits just 1 metro stop away. And this is where the economic narrative really takes a sharp turn. Because Al Maktoum isn't just like an overflow runway.
Far from it. The long-term aviation strategy for Dubai is to transition massive passenger and cargo volumes from the current primary hub, Dubai International Airport, which is essentially landlocked in the older part of the city, down to Al Maktoum International in Dubai South.
Which is a huge undertaking.
Oh, it's a multi-decade, multi-billion-dollar expansion. And when you have a global aviation hub scaling up to that magnitude, it creates a gravitational pull.
Right.
It pulls logistics companies, corporate headquarters, hospitality chains, and millions of transient professionals southward.
So it's an aerotropolis.
Exactly. It creates an entire economic ecosystem driven by the airport. And as that center of gravity shifts south, the demand for highly premium, established commercial and residential hubs in that immediate vicinity is going to compress rapidly.
Which puts Expo City right in the crosshairs.
Right. Expo City is perfectly positioned to be the sophisticated urban anchor for that new economic engine. And it already has the commercial anchor to prove it, the Dubai Exhibition Center, or the DEC.
Let's talk about the DEC, because it's featured heavily in the master plan materials we reviewed. It's a world-class venue that recently hosted COP28, the United Nations Climate Change Conference.
Yeah, and hosting an event of the magnitude of COP28 is the ultimate stress test for a city's infrastructure. You were talking about tens of thousands of global delegates, heads of state, policymakers, and corporate titans converging on one location.
The logistics of that must be insane.
The security protocols, the high bandwidth digital requirements, the transport logistics, and the hospitality needs are monumental. The fact that the DEC and, by extension, Expo City handled that flawlessly proves the caliber of the built environment.
So living near the DEC means you aren't just in a residential suburb. You're adjacent to a continuous rotating hub of global commerce and intellectual exchange.
Yes, it guarantees a constant influx of international capital, business activity, and high-level networking right at your doorstep. It basically changes the demographic of the area from purely residential to a dynamic global node.
Okay, I follow the logic on the economic shift and the connectivity, but I have to push back here a little bit.
Sure.
Because empty streets with great highway access are still just empty streets. When I hear We retained the infrastructure from a massive exhibition. A cynical part of me wonders, is this just a repurposed theme park?
That's a fair question.
Like, did they just leave the futuristic pavilion standing, slap some residential zoning on the empty parking lots, and call it a city of the future? What actually makes this a functioning, living, urban environment, and not just, I don't know, an architectural museum?
It's a vital distinction to make and a very natural skepticism to have. But the difference between a theme park and a living city lies entirely in the invisible infrastructure.
Stuff you can't see.
Right, the mechanical engineering that runs beneath the surface. And the data points we have dismantle the theme park theory completely. Let's look at the digital backbone. The entire city operates on a dedicated, fully integrated 5G network.
Okay, but a lot of cities have 5G now. I mean, my phone has 5G. How is it different?
Because having a 5G data plan on your phone in a normal city is very different from a master planned environment where the 5G architecture is embedded into the city grid itself.
Oh, I see.
This is about machine-to-machine communication. It allows for ultra-low latency data transfer that supports autonomous mobility networks, intelligent traffic management, and real-time environmental monitoring.
So the city is actually talking to itself.
Exactly. It allows the buildings themselves to communicate with the central grid to optimize energy loads based on microfluctuations in demand. That level of digital integration is the foundation of a modern commercial smart city.
Okay, so the digital nervous system is highly advanced. What about the physical sustainability? Because, that word gets thrown around as a marketing buzzword constantly.
Oh, absolutely.
So how are they actually executing sustainability at a mechanical level?
We can measure that through objective third-party certifications outlined in the brochures. The area contains 123 permanent buildings that have achieved a LEED certification.
Oh, 123 buildings.
Yeah. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and it's arguably the most rigorous green building standard in the world, overseen by the U.S. Green Building Council. And out of those 123 buildings, 7 have achieved LEED Platinum.
Which is the highest level, right?
Yes, and it's exceptionally difficult to attain. Another 105 are LEED Gold. On top of that, the underlying infrastructure projects achieved an excellent rating under BREEAM, which is another major international standard evaluating ecological enhancement and carbon reduction in civil engineering.
I mean, you don't accidentally stumble into a LEED Platinum rating while building a temporary pavilion. That requires massive upfront engineering.
Precisely. You have to engineer that performance into the very bones of the structures. It dictates the orientation of the buildings for passive solar cooling, the thermal mass of the construction materials, the integration of extensive solar photovoltaic arrays, and the deployment of advanced smart metering.
It's built in from day one.
Exactly. The systems actively monitor and modulate chilled water usage and electricity consumption minute by minute. Furthermore, the master plan prioritized radical material recovery, diverting construction and operational waste away from landfills through systemic recycling and reuse protocols.
So, to summarize the macro picture here, the Expo event was essentially just an incredibly lavish opening ceremony for a deeply engineered, hyper-efficient, smart city. It isn't a retrofit. The permanent city was always the primary objective.
That is the exact paradigm shift required to understand this area.
All right, so we've established the wall, this hyper-connected, deeply sustainable, 5G-enabled urban center with massive economic catalysts in the DEC and the southward shifting airport.
Right.
Now let's finally look at the painting.
Yeah.
Let's transition from the macro bustling environment of Expo City into the highly specific micro enclave where Roudah is being launched, Expo Valley Views.
And this transition is fascinating because as you cross the threshold into Expo Valley Views, the architectural language and the sensory experience shift dramatically.
Yeah, the central design philosophy provided for Roudah in the materials is phrased very intentionally. It says, where the earth shapes the way you live. It describes architecture that takes its cues from the folds of the land, rising softly from the earth, wrapping and opening to light and calm.
That's a profound statement of intent. The earth shapes the way you live implies an architecture of subservience to the natural landscape rather than a domination of it.
It really is a striking counter-narrative to what we instinctively picture when we discuss premium Dubai real estate.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, if you ask someone to close their eyes and picture a luxury Dubai development, they almost always picture a monolith. A towering, assertive structure covered in reflective blue glass and steel, designed to pierce the sky, break a height record, and serve as this unmistakable landmark.
Architecture that screams for attention.
Exactly. But the aesthetic profile for Roudah intentionally whispers.
Yep.
The materials detail a reliance on soft hues of sand, natural stone, and sunlit neutral tones. Instead of a sheer vertical drop, the buildings are designed to rise naturally from the ground via cascading podiums, expansive terraces, and sheltered courtyards.
It's a deliberate pivot away from the wow effect of aggressive verticality. By utilizing terraces and podiums, the architects are creating a stepped organic profile that feels entirely grounded.
Which changes how you feel walking around it.
Completely. This taps into the principles of neuroarchitecture, which is the study of how the built environment affects human brain chemistry and nervous system regulation. Sharp, towering glass monoliths can subtly induce psychological stress. They feel imposing and detached from human scale.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. In contrast, organic shapes, natural textures, and low-rise terraced forms signal safety and grounding to the human brain. It creates an architecture that is meant to be experienced intimately at eye level.
And that eye-level experience is heavily focused on walkability and environmental wellness. The master plan specifically prioritizes pedestrians through the implementation of car-free districts.
And the impact of a car-free district on daily well-being really cannot be overstated. When you remove internal combustion engines and tire friction from a residential cluster, you completely transform the acoustic environment.
You remove the noise.
Right. Urban noise pollution, the constant low-frequency hum of traffic, is a proven driver of elevated cortisol levels and chronic stress. By eliminating vehicles from the immediate residential pathways, you lower the ambient decibel level dramatically, creating an acoustic sanctuary.
It also allows for a totally different approach to the landscaping itself. The area features a massive 45,000 square meters of parks and green spaces.
Which is enormous for a residential enclave.
It is. But
Okay.
the detail that really stopped me in my tracks was the operational standard for those parks. The brochures state that more than 90% of the landscape areas are managed without the use of chemical pesticides.
That is an incredibly difficult operational standard to maintain, and it requires highly sophisticated ecological engineering.
Right, because if you're trying to maintain thousands of square meters of pristine green parkland in a desert climate, I feel like the default approach is to just blast it with synthetic fertilizers, chemical pesticides, and massive amounts of desalinated water.
Usually, yes.
So how do they actually achieve a 90% chemical-free environment? Are they just letting it grow wild?
No, it's a highly curated ecosystem based on the principles of integrated pest management and native ecology. First, they rely heavily on native planting. These are species that are evolutionarily adapted to the specific soil salinity, UV index, and precipitation levels of the UAE.
Okay, so they already know how to survive there.
Exactly. Because these plants naturally belong there, their immune systems are robust, and they don't require the chemical life support systems that imported exotic plant species demand. Second, they cultivate healthy soil microbiomes and use companion planting strategies to naturally deter pests.
And what about the water usage?
They utilize advanced smart irrigation networks. So instead of just putting sprinklers on a blind timer, the irrigation systems use localized soil moisture sensors and integrate with meteorological APIs to predict weather patterns.
Oh, wow. So it knows if it's going to be humid or rain.
Right. The system only delivers the exact volume of water required by the root systems at any given moment. This drastically reduces water waste and supports a low-carbon, resilient ecology aligned with the UAE's Net Zero 2050 strategic initiative.
So when they market a wellness-oriented lifestyle, they aren't just talking about, putting a sauna next to the gym.
Not at all.
They're talking about engineering a microenvironment where the air is acoustically quieter, physically cleaner due to the absence of exhaust, and chemically safer because you aren't breathing in vaporized pesticides every time the wind blows across the lawn.
It is a biological approach to luxury.
Exactly. Integrating the human habitat back into a functioning, balanced ecosystem. Let's move from the exterior environment into the private residences.
Let's do it.
We have this grounded, organic, hyper-green community. What do the actual units look like? The project offers 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. But the spatial metrics, the actual square footage, are highly unusual for this market segment.
The dimensions are exceptionally generous. If we look at the one-bedroom units, they range from 890 to 1,118 square feet.
Just pause on that number. 890 square feet as a starting point for a one-bedroom.
It's massive.
I mean, in major global hubs, whether it's London, Manhattan, or even many of the newer dense developments in Dubai Marina or downtown, a standard one-bedroom often hovers around 600 to 700 square feet. To push a one-bedroom past 1,100 square feet, you are entering the spatial territory of what many developers would aggressively market as a two-bedroom.
Yeah, and it fundamentally changes what you can do with the space. At 1,100 square feet, a one-bedroom is no longer just a place to sleep and watch television.
Right.
It allows for a dedicated, separate home office area. It allows for a dining table that seats 8 people comfortably, rather than a cramped breakfast bar. It provides breathing room. And this spatial generosity scales proportionately across all the unit types.
Give us the numbers for the bigger units.
Sure. The two-bedroom apartments range from 1,337 to 1,675 square feet. The three-bedroom units are vast, ranging from 1,820 up to 2,251 square feet.
Those are the dimensions of substantial family homes, just formatted laterally. It suggests an intention for these units to function as primary, long-term residences rather than compact, transient investment pods designed strictly for short-term holiday rentals.
Exactly. The physical layout dictates the demographic. You build spaces like this when you want to attract end users who intend to stay and integrate into a community.
But, square footage on a 2D floor plan is only half the equation when it comes to the human perception of space.
Oh, absolutely.
The structural volume is what actually dictates how a room feels. And the defining architectural feature of Roudah, arguably the most important line item in the entire design brief, is the ceiling height. These apartments feature soaring 3.2-meter-high ceilings.
That is a profound design choice. A 3.2-meter ceiling, which is roughly 10.5 feet, is exceedingly rare in modern multi-story apartment construction due to the sheer cost of the lost vertical density for the developer.
Right, because the standard ceiling height in most modern builds is around 2.4 to 2.7 meters.
Yeah.
Pushing it to 3.2 meters changes the physics of the room entirely. From a psychological standpoint, there's actually a well-known phenomenon in environmental psychology, often referenced via the Myers-Lewy study, which demonstrated that higher ceilings significantly enhance a person's sense of freedom.
I've read about that.
Yeah, it encourages more abstract, creative, and expansive thinking, whereas lower ceilings tend to confine the mind to detail-oriented, restrictive tasks.
It creates a sense of immense volumetric relief. But from a purely architectural standpoint, the primary benefit of a 3.2-meter ceiling is that it allows for significantly taller glazing. It allows for massive floor-to-ceiling windows.
And why does that extra half-meter of glass matter so much?
Because of the physics of daylight penetration. As a general rule of thumb in architectural lighting, natural daylight will effectively penetrate a room to a depth of about 1.5 to 2 times the height of the window head.
Okay, so the higher the window, the deeper the light goes.
Exactly. By raising the window height to over 3 meters, you are driving natural sunlight incredibly deep into the core of the floor plan. It dramatically reduces the reliance on artificial lighting during the day and completely blurs the visual boundary between the interior living space and the exterior landscape.
And what exactly are you looking at through those massive expanses of glass? What's the visual payoff?
Well, the views are layered. Depending on the orientation, the residences look out over the immediate tranquility of Expo Valley, the dense greenery of the Expo Forest and Lake, and out toward the broader dynamic skyline of Expo City.
So beautiful.
It really is. This includes iconic architectural achievements like the Al Wasal Plaza, which is that massive, intricate, domed trellis that serves as the heart of the city, and Terra, the sustainability pavilion. So it's a curated mix of serene, natural vistas and world-class futuristic architecture.
So you have these massive volumes of space flooded with deep natural light, looking out over chemical-free forest and iconic architecture. What is the financial threshold to access this? Let's analyze the baseline pricing metrics provided for the launch.
The entry points are positioned as follows based on the materials. The one-bedroom residences start from 1,692,000 UAE dirhams. The two-bedroom units start from 2,543,000 dirhams. And the expansive three-bedroom units begin at 3,658,000 dirhams.
Now, if you are an investor or an active buyer listening to this analysis, your immediate next questions are likely going to be about the specific payment plan structure, the anticipated handover date, and the projected service charges per square foot.
Of course.
But here is the critical caveat for our analysis today. Because we are evaluating the foundational design thesis and the macroeconomic environment based purely on the verified developer materials, we are not going to pull speculative financial mechanics out of thin air.
And that is a vital point of analytical integrity. The provided sources outline the starting acquisition costs, which establish the market positioning of the asset. However, they do not detail the staggered payment schedules, the operational service fees, or guarantee any specific rental yields.
Exactly. Real estate analysis requires separating the intrinsic value of the physical asset from the financial engineering of the transaction. We are dissecting what this project is and why it matters structurally.
The fundamentals.
Right. The granular financial mechanics, the exact ROI projections or cash flow models, must be verified through direct consultation with the developer or your broker. We're not going to hypothesize on numbers that aren't structurally verified in the master plan documents.
With that established, the most effective way to understand the value of this asset is to look at the daily utility it provides to the end user. The brochures note over 25 amenities for the whole family, but, a list of amenities is meaningless without context.
A bulleted list doesn't tell you how it feels to live there.
Exactly. We need to look at how these features actively reshape the daily routine of a resident.
Let's do exactly that. Let's put you, the listener, directly into this environment. Imagine your alarm goes off on a Tuesday morning. Because you have those 3.2-meter high windows, your bedroom is already flooded with soft, natural morning light rather than harsh artificial bulbs.
A great start to the day.
Yeah, and you step out of your building, and because you are in a dedicated car-free district, there's no idling traffic, no exhaust fumes, and no low-frequency tire hum. The acoustic environment is completely serene.
And then say you decide to take a morning run. Instead of dodging traffic on a sidewalk, you're jogging along shaded, dedicated pathways that weave through the 45,000 square meters of parkland.
Right.
You're surrounded by native gaff trees and smart irrigated flora that are sustained without chemical pesticides, meaning the air you're breathing deeply during your cardio is profoundly clean.
You finish your run and transition into your workday. If you operate remotely, the citywide 5G infrastructure fundamentally changes your options. You aren't tethered to the router inside your living room.
No, you can go anywhere.
You can take your laptop down to one of the elevated gardens or quiet courtyards engineered into the terraced architecture, knowing you have ultra-low latency, enterprise-grade connectivity while literally sitting under a tree.
Alternatively, if your business requires face-to-face interaction or global networking, your commute is remarkably frictionless. You aren't sitting in an hour of gridlock on the E11.
God, no.
You take a short pedestrian-prioritized walk or a quick ride on the autonomous transit pods directly to the corporate hubs within Expo City or the Dubai Exhibition Center. You are physically embedded within a primary node of international commerce.
And let's factor in family life. If you have children, the anxiety of urban living is largely mitigated. When the kids want to go outside, they aren't playing adjacent to 4 lanes of fast-moving traffic.
Which is a huge relief for parents.
Huge. They have access to massive, ecologically clean parks and interactive water features. The environment is inherently secure by design. And for the adults, the wellness integration continues into the evening.
Right. The materials highlight specific leisure architectures, such as the mountain pools, which offer a resort-level aquatic experience, and the premium fitness center.
And the fitness center design is actually incredibly telling regarding the target demographic. There's an image in the brochure detailing the aesthetic. It features warm wood paneling with striking modern typography integrated right into the design that reads, wake, run, lift, eat, sleep, repeat.
It's very intentional.
It doesn't look like a sterile afterthought residential gym tucked away in a basement. It looks like a high-end boutique health club in a major metropolis. It signals a highly intentional, performance-oriented lifestyle.
And following that routine, the broader cultural ecosystem of Expo City is entirely at your disposal. You can take a leisurely evening stroll to Al Wasl Plaza to access world-class gastronomy, high-end retail, and international cultural events.
All without ever needing to retrieve your car from a parking podium.
Exactly.
The functional paradox they have engineered here is just brilliant. If you look at the history of urban planning, you usually had to make a painful compromise.
We had to choose.
Right. You either chose to live in a quiet, green, leafy suburb and accepted a punishing, soul-crushing daily commute to the economic center, or you chose to live right in the hyper-connected downtown core and accepted the relentless noise, the concrete density, and the complete lack of nature.
That was the trade-off.
But Roudah and Expo City are attempting to obliterate that compromise. You are living in a hidden, ecologically pristine sanctuary, but you have a dedicated metro station, a global exhibition center, and an enterprise 5G network physically touching your front door. Extreme tranquility fused with extreme connectivity.
Which brings us to the ultimate analytical question. Who is the buyer for this specific matrix of features?
Based on the spatial volume, the ecological focus, and the deliberate absence of a towering, flashy skyscraper. Who is the target demographic here?
The demographic is highly specific and heavily weighted toward end users and families. These are buyers who prioritize expansive internal space, personal wellness, and community integration over the superficial prestige of a 60th floor address.
They want substance over flash.
Yes, they recognize the value of a pesticide-free environment for their children, the psychological benefit of 3.2-meter ceilings, and the daily utility of car-free infrastructure. They are looking for an anchor, a place to put down roots in a transient city.
Okay, that makes perfect sense for an end user. But what about the investor? Dubai is a massive investment market. Is this the right asset for a speculative buyer looking to flip a property for a quick premium in 6 months?
Based on the structural and economic narrative we've unpacked, absolutely not. The investment thesis for Roudah is fundamentally long-term.
Why is that? Why not a quick flip?
Because the value acceleration of this asset is inextricably tied to the macroeconomic maturation of Dubai South. An investor taking a position in Roudah is making a calculated bet on the southward shift of the Emirates' center of gravity.
Back to the airport.
Yes. They are looking at the multi-decade expansion of Al Maktoum International Airport. They're looking at the continuous programming of global summits at the DEC. They recognize that as those massive commercial engines scale up, the localized demand for premium, highly livable, low-density residential space that is physically adjacent to those hubs will compress and solidify.
So it's an investment in the underlying infrastructure and the urban master plan, rather than a gamble on short-term market hype.
Exactly. It's a fundamental real estate play based on geographic scarcity and infrastructural dominance.
We started this deep dive by warning against the trap of staring at the painting while ignoring the wall. By dissecting the macro vision of Expo City Dubai first, the retained mega infrastructure, the strategic transit alignment, the 5G and LEED platinum backbone, we can actually understand the true value of the Roudah project.
It all connects.
It is the ultimate counter-narrative to standard Dubai real estate.
It is a profound shift in market offering. It entirely abandons the traditional wow effect of towering isolation and reflective glass, replacing it with a much quieter, deeper, and arguably more enduring form of luxury.
Yeah.
It's the luxury of a meticulously engineered environment, of acoustic peace, of systemic ecological sustainability, and of everyday, frictionless well-being.
It assumes that the modern buyer has evolved to value a chemically clean park, a car-free commute, and the psychological freedom of a 3.2-meter ceiling far more than a dizzying view from a glass box in the sky.
Exactly.
Is looking at Dubai not just as a fast-paced market for rapid transactions, but as a maturing laboratory for the future of urban living.
It represents a real maturation of the city's real estate philosophy.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. Urban planners often say that a city's skyline is a physical manifestation of what its society values most at that point in time.
That's a great point.
For the last several decades, global urban wealth has been defined almost exclusively by verticality and isolation. The desire to acquire the penthouse at the absolute top of the tallest tower, physically and socially removed from the reality of the street level below.
The higher you go, the more successful you are. That was the old mindset.
Right. But when we analyze projects like Roudah, we're witnessing a tectonic shift toward horizontal integration. We're seeing a new paradigm where premium wealth is defined not by how far you can escape the earth, but by your access to it.
Access to nature.
Wealth is becoming defined by exclusive access to clean air, to immediate nature, to grounded community, and to seamless high-speed integration with the world. So what does this shift from the vertical isolated tower to the horizontal nature-integrated ecosystem tell us about the future of human aspiration?
That's the real question.
Are we finally realizing that the ultimate urban luxury isn't building a fortress in the sky, but engineering a perfect balance with the ground beneath our feet?
That is the defining question for the next generation of master plan cities, and honestly, a fascinating lens through which to view any future real estate acquisition.
It changes everything about how we value space. We want to thank you for joining us on this rigorous deep dive into Roudah and the macro mechanics of Expo City Dubai. We encourage you to always question the surface narrative, to look past the floor plans, to understand the hidden infrastructure, and to continue exploring the complex, evolving landscape of the cities of tomorrow. Until next time.